Many of us have experienced. We've been in some setting, some church setting, and somebody offered an invitation. But the invitation is if you don't get saved, you will spend eternity in hell, and you will experience God's wrath for eternity. And we literally try to scare people out of hell. We tell people, you got to get saved from something, when I think we should be saying, you need to get saved for something. You're going to miss out. Because the only way you're getting to this table is by responding to the invitation. That's it. There will be a great banquet. You and I have been invited. Jesus is the invitation. He's the doorway in. He paid the price. He did the work. So you and I just have to show up. We have to follow up. We have to respond. The RSVP is not enough. Understanding that when we accept the invitation, when we send the RSVP, that's when the work begins. That a life of faith, a life of discipleship, when we've committed our life to Christ to follow him, it's not stagnant. It's not we're just waiting for the call. It's, that call is coming. It'll come with our death or his return. But until that call comes, we need to answer the call every day to go and make disciples. That you and I would live a life that compels people to come to the banquet table. That our lives would be lived as an invitation. You know who I think in this parable of this story, you know who I think we're most like, or who we most should be like? The servant. You know who's not going to miss the meal? The servant. That meal's not going to get served till he gets back. He's not going to miss it. And here's the privilege, and this is where it pokes our pride. We don't want to hear this. But he's dealing with pride. We don't want to be the servant. We want to sit at the table of honor. But we forget in God's kingdom, everything is upside down. The last will be first. Being a servant is a privilege. It's an honor. This servant was close enough to the master to hear his voice, to say, listen, these seats aren't filled. Go out. He gave him meaning and purpose and sent him out. He went. He didn't argue. He didn't debate. He didn't say, isn't there somebody else that can go? Can we do this tomorrow? Does it have to happen right now? He went. He just went. He was just faithful to the call. He comes back. He says, here's my report. If this was you or I'll just say me. If this was me, I might feel unsuccessful reporting back to God. You sent me to fill the seats. I didn't fill them all. And what does he tell him? Just go further out. And then how many of us would complain? But I already went once. And why do I got to go that far? But he just went. He did what he was asked. He went further the second time. If we've responded to the invitation to turn our life completely over to God, then are we doing the inviting? Because that's what we should be doing. Augustine said, preach often, and when needed, speak. He's talking about our lives, the way we live them. People should see something different. It should compel them to want to know what's different about you. Because it's different. Are we answering the call? Are we close enough to the master to hear his voice? Are we faithful enough to do what he's asking? Are we satisfied with the bread of life and the living water? Have we responded to him? So I'm asking you to bow your heads as I close in prayer. And if you have not responded to the invitation, that God accepts you as you are, but won't leave you there. That he has a plan and a purpose greater than you or I could ever come up with on our own. That he loves us unconditionally. His son died so that we could be reconciled. He's in this for the long game. He's viewing this eternally. Our soul feels the void that only he can fill. He's drawing us to himself. But the invitation isn't enough. There has to be a response. Do we see following him all the way to that banquet table is worth it? Because if we do, we'll give up everything to do it. And that's what's required. So I ask you to put your faith in him and to trust his ways and allow him to begin the work of walking the narrow road. But we don't walk it alone. He's the good shepherd. He provides and protects. And if you have responded to the invitation and you would say that I'm a follower of Christ, I'm a disciple, are you still answering the call? Are you trying to bring people that are far from God to the banquet table? Seeing that no matter where we are, wherever God has us in this life, work, home, neighborhood, family, soccer field, Walmart checkout line, he can use us to encourage those who are far from God to come get a seat at the banquet table, to accept his son that he's offered as a gift, and experience the freedom that only he can offer, to remove the guilt and the shame that we wear like lead trench coats that he can take off, that we can live with conviction and passion because we know his purpose. And we feel fulfilled because we're doing what the master's asked.